So this is not much of a talk as much as it is just me introducing myself. So hi, my name is Manik, and I'm an intern, student, web developer, not in that order. And about 6 to 7 months ago, I started contributing to Prometheus. And down the line, Bartek, Daniel, and Arthur thought it would be a good idea to mentor me as well. And so I'm going to talk about some of the things I've been doing. And yeah, this slide is irrelevant now. So the first thing that I did, which was outside my mentorship, was work on native histogram rendering. So before, if people remember, there was none of this. It was just a bunch of strings. It was just a really long string and really hard to understand what it was. So I picked up this issue and made 2 PRs. One of them was the one that you see on screen called Update Histogram Math. And as you can see, it got pretty long. There was a lot of discussion going on, a lot of commits too. And for this, all this just for a not very huge change in lines of code. Most of this discussion was with Bjorn, who helped me out with the math and getting everything correct. Because it's pretty trivial to place buckets or bins of a histogram on a canvas. It gets a little bit tricky when you're trying to scale them for exponential axes. So we could always use a plug-and-play solution, any recharts or whatever, but we chose to use HTML, CSS, and JS, mostly because Julius had given me some starter code, and I thought it couldn't get too hard. But yeah, it took 4 months, so. Anyway, some of the issues that we encountered were consistent bucket scaling. If you look at the first image, that's the 0 bucket, and everything else is flat. At the very bottom, it'll be green, not black, so yeah. Another issue that we encountered, the second image, was that buckets started overlapping. So negative buckets were overlapping with the positive buckets. It's not very clear here, and then some buckets would also start to overflow. Luckily, that's fixed. And finally, the biggest pain point was handling the 0 bucket. So for example, if you have conditions where you may have only positive buckets, but plus the 0 bucket, and sometimes the math would just break, and you'd see whatever's on screen in the third image, which is nothing. So finally, after months of talking to Bjorn, we finally got this, which is a beautiful feature, and I hope you guys utilize it. This will be important soon. Now, the next bit is the meat and the bones of whatever I was doing at Prometheus under my mentorship with Bartek, Daniel, and Arthur. And it was essentially to work around CT and open metrics. More specifically, implement created timestamp parsing in open metrics. So the solution we chose and we thought was a good idea was to create a deep copy of our parser and have it peek into the upcoming lines so that we could find CT. Why did we do this? Because this is what it could look like. So for example, the parser could be on the second line here, which is baz_bucket. And it has to look for the created line, which is at the very bottom. So that's why we thought, okay, we could try and create a copy of our parser and have it skip all the way until it finds created or fails. Now, this is not ideal, and we found out the hard way. So I'll give you a moment just to figure out what's written there. Yeah, so it turns out that when you have a situation like this, and you decide to create a deep copy for every line that you parse on every scrape, memory tends to add up quite a bit. Right. Now, we did end up somewhat mediating the situation, and we are also working towards now micro-benchmarking our open metrics parsing code, as well as finding a fix, because, of course, this is not an ideal situation. Now, my mentorship will end soon, so you might be thinking, what's next for me? I was also supposed to work on heat map view, which Julius mentioned just now in his lightning talk. Hopefully that gets done soon. Another thing is that I'm going to add more micro-benchmarking code for OpenMetrics CT parsing. And also, yeah, of course, optimize and ship a better CT parser for OpenMetrics. And thank you. I have a non-exhaustive list of people I'd like to thank specifically. They were heavily involved during my time with Prometheus. And yeah, thank you.